Our views, as the right honourable gentleman knows, as the honourable gentleman knows is of course that we have serious concerns about what is happening between India and Pakistan.
ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ 100 ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਦੀ ਧਰਤੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਬੈਠਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਉਦੋਂ ਦੇ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਦੇ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਟਰਾਈਡਸ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਕੁਝ ਕੀਤਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ It's so shocking to hear Mr. Johnson say that this whole protest is between India and Pakistan. Where have you folks failed on this?
Once again, it's not really a failure on the Sikh community side. It's more of a failure on the British government side, failing to recognise.
Welcome to the Grewal Show. I'm your host Gurinder Singh Grewal. Aap sab nu mere walloਂ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ. Today on my show through Skype, I have Surjit Singh Dosanjh from Sikh Council UK. Dosanjh sahab, welcome to the show.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ
ਫਤਿਹ ਦੋਸਾਂਝ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਉਂਸਲ ਯੂਕੇ ਦੇ ਸਪੋਕਸਪਰਸਨ ਹੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿਊਅਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੋ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਉਂਸਲ ਯੂਕੇ ਆ ਇਹ ਕਦੋਂ ਦੀ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ
ਰਾਈਟ ਇਹ ਅਸਲ 'ਚ ਇਹਨੂੰ 10 ਸਾਲ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਬਣਾਈ ਨੂੰ
ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਜੀ
ਐਂਡ ਇਹ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਜਦੋਂ 10 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇਹਦੀ ਸਮੂਹ ਜਥੇਬੰਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹਦੀ ਸਮਝਿਆ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਆ ਸੋ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਇਹਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰੋਲ ਹੈਗਾ ਇਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਉਂਸਲ ਜਦੋਂ 10 ਸਾਲ ਬਣਾਈ ਸੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਜਥੇਬੰਦੀਆਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂਬਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਆ ਸੋ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਉਂਸਲ ਯੂਕੇ ਦੀ
ਆਪਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਸਰਟਨ ਥਿੰਗਸ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿਊਅਰਸ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਵਾਚ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਸੋ ਵੈਨ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਟਾਕਿੰਗ ਅਬਾਊਟ ਦ ਸਿੱਖ Sikh gurdwaras and the other components. What are the other components which come with the Sikh gurdwaras into this council?
It's basically any Sikh-based organisation who's been established for the past couple of years, and they have the accounts to show that they have been doing some kind of seva, some kind of activities towards achieving something for the Sikhs. Not just locally, not just nationally here, but also internationally as well.
So any examples of those?
Any organisation. Yes, you got you probably, I don't know if the main one is the Sikh Federation that we have. Okay. I think everyone's probably heard of that. That the Sikh Federation was one of the federations which was started back in 1984 after the Golden Temple attack. So it continued, but we just changed the name of that because of the certain reasons from the government trying to portray it as an organisation that it really was not. So they had to change the name from Sikh Youth Federation to Sikh Federation UK.
So now, can a community member be also a member of the Sikh Council, or it has to be an organisation or a Sikh Gurdwara?
They can be members as part of they can become members of the gurdwaras. They can become members of the local any Sikh organisation, and that way they become members. But having said that, there is no reason why they can't become members, even if they're on, because if they support Sikh Council any which way they can, then they're all members.
So when you said that it started about 10 years ago, let's not go back even to the 10 years. Let's go back in the last 5 years. What would you say your maybe 3 achievements have been in the last 5 years?
Well, the last 5 years we've been working quite hard on some of the crime rates that's been rising here, and we've been trying to force the government to actually now take note of what's been the kind of discrimination the Sikhs have been facing. And it's been quite, how can you say, on the back foot for the government and the police force here, taking note of how the Sikhs have been treated, or how the Sikhs have been mistreated. So having done that, only this year they have come up with the true figures to say that in the last 4 or 5 years, the crime rate or the hate crime against Sikhs have gone up by 72%. And that is all down to because of the work we've done.
But Mr. Dosanjh, it's whatever you're telling me just does not make sense to me as a host, because outside of Punjab, India, I think in the UK was the first country in the world where Sikhs came and settled. And if there's such a high rate of hate crime in the UK, why so?
Well, you got to understand, UK was also the ones who colonized India. So there is a lot of history between the Sikhs and the British. And we have to understand, when they were in India, the formidable force that they came across was the Punjabi, was the Sikhs. And that's where they took the biggest defeat. And British are the kind of people, I would have to say, without being biased, they don't let that kind of defeats go easily, and they still remember that. And then you remember that the masses who were then, who were put on a death sentence were also Sikhs when they pushed England or the British out of India for their independence. So Sikhs have played a very, very crucial part in one, defeating the English when they were undefeatable, and then also making sure that to gain our independence, we played a big role. And even here, coming to England with Udham Singh, as you know, I mean, with no one's forgetting Udham Singh, the only Sikh, anyone from any other culture who have come to this country on their soil to take revenge on what they did or the genocide they committed back in Jallianwala Bagh. So these are the kind of things. There is a history. And plus there's an economical history as well, because England ties itself very closely with India. They still feel that, so they may have left, but they still feel that they are still in charge of India in some form or way.
ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਆਮ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਲੋਕ ਆ ਇਹ ਭੁੱਲਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਕੋਈ ਬੈਡ ਚੀਜ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੋਵੇ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਵੀ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਲੋਕ ਵੀ ਸੇਮ ਹੀ ਹੈ, ਆਪਣੇ ਵਰਗੇ ਹੀ ਉਹ।
ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਲਚਰ ਇਹੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿ ਲਈਏ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਹਜੇ ਤੱਕ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ, ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਵਨ ਆਫ ਦ ਰੀਜ਼ਨਸ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਹਜੇ ਮੰਨੀਆਂ ਨਹੀਂ। ਐਂਡ ਇਟਸ ਬੀਨ ਅ ਬੈਟਲ। I know ਇੱਥੇ ਹੁਣ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 100 ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਉੱਪਰ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ, ਤੇ ਪਰ we've been still been battling, still been a battle ਵੀ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਸਕਸੈਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੋ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਥੇ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਸਕਸੈਸ, ਤੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ। ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਹਿਲੋਂ
ਮੈਂ ਉਸੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਤੇ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਦਸਾਂਝ ਸਾਹਿਬ, ਕਿ ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ 100 ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਦੀ ਧਰਤੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਬੈਠਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਉਦੋਂ ਦੇ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਦੇ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਟਰਾਈਡਸ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਕੁਛ ਕੀਤਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ?
ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਇਹੀ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ ਇਹਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮੂਵਮੈਂਟ ਇੱਧਰੋਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇੱਧਰ ਨੂੰ ਧਿਆਨ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ, ਉਹ 84 ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ 'ਚ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਵੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਦਾਇਰੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਉਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ, ਵੀ ਹੈਵ ਟੂ ਗੈਟ ਇਨਵੋਲਵਡ। ਉਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੋਗੇ, ਹੁਣ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਇੱਕ ਆਪਣਾ MP ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਲੋ ਤੋਂ ਧਨਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਇੱਕ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ। ਪਹਿਲੋਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਪਰ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਕੋਈ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਸੀ।
So ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਸਾਂਝ ਸਾਹਿਬ, like how long have you been living in the UK?
I came here in the 60s. I was only about 5 years old.
Oh, okay.
So I've been here most of my life.
So when you were growing up, getting your higher education, did you or your friends or your cousins never thought of anybody going into politics?
I would say I personally didn't, but I knew friends who were trying to get into these kind of politics, but it was very, very difficult. It's very difficult because one, it's our parents. We didn't get you got to look at it. When I was growing up, we went through a lot of discrimination at school, in colleges, even outside. That was an era when I don't know if you've ever heard of the skinheads and these Billy boys and the Teddy boys, and it was a very, very difficult time for us. So, let alone standing standing as a politician or trying to get anywhere near that, it was even difficult to get certain jobs here.
Now,
and that's it. Yeah, sorry.
Now, you being the spokesperson for the Sikh Council, and you said that most of the Gurdwaras and a lot of organizations are part of you. Do you have any plans next time when elections come in the UK as to what you as a whole, as a group, are going to be doing?
Well, we are pushing the youngsters to come forward. It's pointless people like my age. We are going to be the so-called backbenchers to push the youngsters to get into politics, so they can raise our voice. So it is now starting to happen. More and more youngsters are now taking a note of this and saying this: if you want to beat the system, you have to be in the system. You cannot stand outside the system and complain about it when you are not even trying to push yourself to get into the system. So the only way to beat the system is be in the system. Well, so we are making every effort.
Mr. Dosanjh, I even make it even simpler. I said you have to be in those boardrooms where decisions are being made. If you're not there, then no decision will be made in your favor. And then if you can just keep on crying all your life, nothing's going to change. So
absolutely, that's exactly what I'm saying.
So in the meantime, I know that there's a huge farmers' protest going on all across India, especially New Delhi. And I'm sure you have followed it or you would have watched it on TV. What's your thoughts on the human rights issues being in India as to what's going to happen with those people and their human rights issues?
Well, we are quite concerned because we already know the human rights violation is already taking place. Even from day one, when the farmers marched to Delhi, there was blockades, there were water cannons, there were tear gas, there were batons, they were beaten, and even to the point where the police force, they were even throwing stones at the protesters and peaceful protest. And what happened in the evening? Those protesters sat there and they gave langar to the same police officers. So we know the human violation. It's nothing new. It's just this is now escalating and it's highlighting that India human violation or human rights violation. It's very, very poor. It's only how can I say it's sad that the Western culture doesn't acknowledge that. It's not that they don't know this, it's just that they don't acknowledge that. It's because of this, economical ties. They want all these trades they want, and whatever history they have. It is a bit sad as far as Sikh Council is concerned, and we are doing everything that we can along with the rest of the Jathebandiyan and the support of all the Gurdwaras, and we've had over 32 MPs, all the British and our own MPs, put this in the parliament, and they've written letters to the government and saying we need to do something about this now. So,
Mr. Dosanjh, we have to go on a short break. After we come back, we will discuss further on what has been happening in UK in the last couple of weeks. Keep on watching the Grey World Show, and I have Mr. Dosanjh from Sikh Council UK with me today. So we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to the Grey World Show. Today on my show, I have through Skype Surjit Singh Dosanjh from Sikh Council UK discussing issues happening in the UK in regards to the Sikh population and in regards to human rights. Mr. Dosanjh, welcome back to the Grey World Show. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਜੀ ਦੋਸਾਂਝ ਸਾਹਿਬ as we were talking ਹੈ ਨਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਉੱਥੇ politically ਥੋੜੀ activeness ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ. So you were saying something about 35 MPs that they signed a letter. Now are these all 35 MPs from the opposition party, or is there anybody from the Conservative Party?
No, it's a what they have a collective group, so they are MPs. It's a mix. They are MPs from different parties who have formed a group, and some of the MPs belongs to the government, which is at present in charge of England. So it's not just one party; it's a mixture of all the parties.
Okay, so what you as a member of the Sikh Council, what do you intend to do with a letter with 35 MPs signed on it? What do you intend to do with it?
Well, we are the ones who have these Zoom calls with them, and we are the ones who are actually pushing for that. One of the things we want, and this is why it was raised in the parliament as well, that the government needs to take note of the human rights violation it's happening now. The people have the right to protest peacefully. It doesn't matter which part of the world they are. It's their right to do that. And that right has now been violated. So we are trying to push this to the British government to now speak to the Indian government and say, right, the issues are to one side. You can discuss the issues. They are internal issues. But when it comes to the human rights violation, you must let these people protest. If they're protesting peacefully, you should not violate their rights. So we are pushing for the government to actually acknowledge and act on that.
ਸੋ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਮੰਨਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਬੱਲੇ ਬੱਲੇ ਕਰਾਤੀ, ਸਾਰੀ ਵਰਲਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਾਮ ਕਰਾਤਾ, ਹਨਾ, we always keep on saying those things, but just this past week there's been a video going viral where your elected MP Mr. Tesi was speaking in Parliament, and then your conservative leader and the Prime Minister Boris Johnson responded. And it's so shocking to hear Mr. Johnson say that this whole protest is between India and Pakistan. Where have you folks failed on this?
Well, once again, it's not really a failure on the Sikh community side. It's more of a failure on the British government side, failing to recognise that this is not an issue between India and Pakistan. And he made him. I don't really know the words to use, because it was actually shocking to hear that the PM of Britain doesn't even know what is happening in the world. Only days before, on the 6th of December, we held a massive rally in central London, and we had something like 5,000 people turn up on that rally. And if he now answering that question in the way he did, thinking that he doesn't know, then he doesn't even know what's going on his own doorstep outside in the central London. So to us, that was appalling. So it's not really a failure from the Sikh community or from the Indian community. It's a failure we see on the British government to acknowledge. I don't think it was a mistake. It's a deliberate sidestep, because they have such ties with the Modi government for the economics, and we're having a Brexit here, and that probably has put an extra burden on the PM not to say anything. But it's to disregard human rights it was appalling.
But Mr. Dosanjh, it is more appalling that your Prime Minister, like, no one has ever told him that we are Sikhs, we are not Pakistanis. Like, does he not know the difference between a Pakistani person and a Sikh person? That's what it seems like.
He knows this quite well. It's a laughing matter, to be honest. He's been to the Gurdwaras, he's been to the mosques, he's been to the temple. So he knows, he's familiar with all the community. That is just he's showing his how can I say? I mean, the words that's been used here is stupidity, to be honest. But I don't know whether I can use that word here now. But that's what he's showing.
But I think personally, it's ignorance.
Well, yeah, absolutely, because it's how can you not know the people in your own country? And don't forget, he belongs to the same party that Margaret Thatcher belonged to in 1984. So he knows exactly. He knows our history. He knows who we are. It's just that failing to acknowledge that it's appalling thing. So it's for whatever reason. He's the only one. But his own party members have now asked him the question, why did he do that? And we have also written to the Pakistan government to say, well, they need to acknowledge that, and they need to force Mr. Boris Johnson to now apologize for dragging them into an issue that they are not part of. And to be honest, let's see what the Pakistan government says.
Because Mr. Dosanjh, when you say that he's been to the Gurdwaras, he's been to the mosque, he's been to the mandirs, that's a sales call by a politician. That does not mean that person knows where he's going or which religion these people belong to. That person's just making a sales call and trying to get votes. But what I'm asking is, does the Sikh Council ever lobby these politicians? Have they ever met these people on a private level?
Yes. We've always been this. We've met them on number of occasions, and not only that, we have one member of the Sikh community who's actually been given a lordship, and he regularly interacts with the government. And then you got our own MP sitting in the parliament. So there is no excuse for him to think that, for anyone to think that he is naive, or he doesn't know who Sikhs are, or he can't differentiate between the Sikhs, the Muslim, and the Hindus. He has made statements in the past relating to Sikhs. He's made statements, acknowledging some of our Gurupabs. So there's no excuse that he does not know who Sikhs are. He very well does. But the reason for him not acknowledging, or the answer that he gave, only he can answer that, to be honest. And we can only assume what's going in his mind when he actually answered that. And you can see he was stuttering. He wasn't really prepared for that, but he just made that up and he had to answer it.
So now is the Sikh Council UK or any other organization or any of the MPs asking for Mr. Johnson's resignation at this point?
His own members of his own party are now condemning him. They're not asking for his resignation, because the turmoil that the UK is going through now with all the Brexit and stuff, no one's actually challenging him on that at the moment, which is another sad case, to be honest. As a Sikh Council, we are now pushing our MPs to get some kind of a resolution for this and some kind of an answer, or even an apology, and say, well, he needs to acknowledge this. So for his resignation, that hasn't come about yet. No.
And going further, what are the steps which the Sikh Council will be taking so that future politicians or prime ministers do not make this kind of mistake? Any steps on those things?
Well, some of the other issues that have highlighted is this COVID-19 thing, and they made a group which is now, how can you say, the group which is now giving all the feedback to the government of how the COVID-19 should be applied in the Gurdwara, the Mandars, and those people haven't really been chosen from the Sikh communities. And we've realized that, and now we're pushing for them to be changed. We're pushing that any future engagement has to be with the Sikh Council or with one of the main organizations who can really put likes of Boris Johnson's or likes of any Prime Minister or any MP straight and say, look, this is who we are. You know who we are. Stop misrepresenting us, because we are here. We're not going away. And we need our own representation. Don't force other people on us, because that's what the government have done so far.
So when you're on the ground in the UK, in London itself, and you hear Canada's Prime Minister, Honourable Justin Trudeau, commenting on the issues in India, in New Delhi, in regards to human rights and the peaceful protest, or even commenting on Prime Minister Modi, what do you folks say, like when you listen to all those things? Well,
we say that wish he was the Prime Minister of UK. That's what we say. We said our Prime Minister should learn a lesson. He should be learning a lesson. Say, look, he's raising his voice. He's not raising against the issues that are happening in India. He's raising the issues against the human rights, that's human rights violation that's taking place. So he's not interfering. And for our local government, to do that, they're not interfering with the affairs of India. They're just merely reminding them that, listen, your human rights violation is not acceptable. And we acknowledge that, and we try to push that on our social media as much as we can and say, look at the difference. There's a country there, there's a prime minister of a country who's freely saying, they will not stand for human violation, and then you have a prime minister on our side who's completely showing ignorance and naivety and saying, well, portraying that he doesn't even know what's going on.
ਦਸਾਂਝ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਅਖੀਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ?
Well, ਅਖੀਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਹਿਣੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ, it's these issues are here. That's fine. I mean, we can press on these issues, and it's a lesson learned, maybe the hard way for the Sikhs, especially in the UK, that we need to be more in the system rather than supporting these people who are in the system, because they're not doing anything for us. So, and the other main thing is that we need to concentrate more on what's happening in Punjab. And we have played a great part in that, and we are doing everything that we can. We've organised seminars. We've not seminars, but Zoom calls with India. We've organised some of the groundwork that's been done in Punjab at the moment, and we are encouraging, and a lot more and more gurdwaras are coming, and then the organisations are coming together and backing us up on that. And we've also done surveys to tell the British government, look, this is the percentage of Sikhs that live here, who actually 90% of the Sikhs living here actually feel for what is going on in India and the violation that is happening in India. So we've done a lot of groundwork here to actually put a lot of data to the government, and it's now trying to push that these government will listen to that and actually acknowledge that. So,
Mr. Dosanjh, Mr. Dosanjh, anytime you need any help or any suggestions, feel free to contact us. We'll be glad to help you out.
Thank you very much for your invitation, and we will certainly do that. And hopefully next time when we talk, I can give you some more positive answers on Boris Johnson's reaction on that.
We'll be glad to hear those.
Hope that he listens.
Thank you. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
You've been watching The Grewal Show with Surjit Singh Dosanjh from Sikh Council UK. Watch us on Punjab Star. Google us anytime. Go on YouTube, The Grewal Show. If you want anybody to come on our show, let us know. We'll be glad to get that guest and have your questions being asked to them so you can get your answers. Sat Sri Akal.